situation. So actually, one time I turned my chair around and just stared back at one of them until they stopped looking. And it was at McDonald's.
It's a weird power move.
I was a little
We'll get
a
to
little
a
tired.
weird power move later on in our extended recap of a 2.5 minute video. But before we do that, we're going to get into what's been going on in basketball since Bethke hasn't been here and we haven't been here.
Yeah, and we're going to break it down literally day by day since Game 6 of the finals, which is where we... I did try to highlight things, so I have
I know you weren't here, and I don't know if you watched it, but
I did.
I did mention, and I just want to mention again, watching that game on my phone at a Chuck E. Cheese while Halliburton falls to the floor just killed me.
And I appreciated that you had that story because I'm glad you also had a unique perspective of this interesting moment in championship history.
It's too bad.
So that was your experience. I agree, not optimal in any way. In fact, I actually heard there's an adult Chuck E. Cheese coming called Chuck Cheese, or I don't know if I was being trolled.
Chuck's Arcade, and the first one in Texas will be opening up in El Paso.
Oh, that's not my problem. El Paso is not anywhere near me. So
might as well
nowhere near us.
India. Yeah, honestly. And that was the other thing you learn about India. And it's, again, it's like being in Texas in a lot of ways. It's like, hey, man, Delhi is a lot different from all the way over there, yeah, so I tried to narrow this down. My story to start was the finals anyway. My experience was a little weird because we went from a Game 6 that felt like the Thunder should have easily won. It was in Indiana. Indiana's been incredible. No real surprise that Indiana ends up taking that one in a fairly decisive way to extend. But I kind of thought the Thunder had it in them to squash the bug. But they were a young team. Naturally, they could not do this. So, Game 7, awesome. Game 7 is the best scenario for everybody, especially this series that didn't have a lot of the lore of the previously big and highly rated players. The SGA is now thought of differently in a way, but at the time, obviously not a champion. Then the fact that it was Oklahoma and Indiana and all that mess. So it was a great thing to happen. For me, I was looking at it as, fuck, man, because now I got to watch this thing in India. Good news is it's free on YouTube in India. So that was kind of cool. Shout out to that partnership for actually being really clutch. Did see a lot of unfortunate stuff in the chat there. But, that's every chat room in the world. So I guess there's nothing really different about that. They also, weirdly enough, on your phone, if you have iPhone, or I'm sure maybe Android, but I just don't know, you can minimize your YouTube app and then like text or whatever. You can't do that in other countries. So I learned that the sad way. So anytime I was like needing to communicate with people over the game, I was like...
You're saying the phone wouldn't...
No, it's not a feature available outside of the country.
Oh, on the app. Okay, that makes sense. Sorry.
Yeah, the app. Yeah, so like
I was
the
trying to
app
figure out
was
the phone, because my phone just automatically does that for any video that's playing. So
right, yeah. So the app won't go into the picture-in-picture as it is.
Does iPhone not have like a dual screen option like I have on my Android?
So it is it's not an iPhone thing. It's a YouTube thing. They don't allow that feature to be utilized. So I'm assuming it's
them being able to geofence that because it feels like it's something that's on the phone, but
no, it's a part of their setting because I think now the phone and the app settings. So I think like they just stop it from their end now. So yeah. Either way, that was just an annoying thing. The funniest part is that I was waking up at 5:30 after I had just flown forever and basically not slept at all. I was now going to have to wake up and watch Game 7 of the NBA Finals. So like 5:30 on my phone while everyone else is asleep. I got that job done for the most part. I was very awake and excited. It was a very fun start to the game. Ideal, I would say. I was luckily My mother-in-law had gotten up already. She got me a chai tea, so like now I got a little energy in me, and I'm ready to roll. And it happens. And it was one replay worth of me knowing it was the bad one.
Yeah.
I think the third replay, it was obvious on his face that he knew it was the bad one.
I mean, I knew, yeah, because you can see even just like the first cut, the minute he pounds the floor, I'm like, that's not, yeah, like he's not playing the rest of this game, or if he does, it's on
Yeah.
one leg, you know.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think it was Kevin Durant. Maybe it was DeMarcus Cousins, but I forgot. They used to have a video that was eerily good at showing out how it happens. This one I didn't think was replacing that. It was pretty close. Pretty close to giving you as clear of a visual of how that thing goes down, or up in this case, as crude as that might be. So yeah, the Achilles snap changes everything. I think that's fair.
I mean, they kept the game close still for a bit. It was kind of nice.
There was a turnover situation that just became insane, and that was just obvious. Oklahoma City was already so good at trapping these things, like even with Tyrese on the court playing his best basketball. So with him out, that pretty much changes your equation. All the different variables needed to happen. You know, Miles Turner, who ends up being a huge part of the NBA free agency story, he never really shot the ball well. That felt like it was always that was always a big factor in the series. And then ultimately, the consistency of Jalen Williams as a second option, and the timeliness and shot selection of Chet Holmgren were the two other variables that I thought made this Oklahoma City different than last Oklahoma
I was
City.
gonna say those are the two guys that just got new deals too, right?
Yeah, and then all three of them.
Yeah.
All three of them. I think Chet isn't official. I think they're just working on it. I don't know. But everybody's
saw
getting re-signed.
something.
Booker just got re-signed.
Something today. I thought that meant it was official, but I guess maybe not.
Booker just maxed out, but he took 2 years from the Suns, so I think that's interesting. I'm not sure where that extension ends, but that's interesting that he was like, "I'll stay with you guys," but
29-30 season.
he's doing the LeBron game early. He's like, I'm keeping you motherfuckers on a short leash, which is probably fair in this situation. He's being very patient with them. But
yeah,
the
I guess
Thunder,
Chet's just been agreed to, but it is the full 5-year max extension.
and I think that's a worthy investment because Chet Holmgren is only in his second year, and he's only needs to be a third guy still. And like, imagine how long their run could be when he's the star of the team, which I do think is a possibility at some point. I think ultimately SGA is the big takeaway from this year. You know, kind of like Curry was when the Warriors won their first. Overarching, when you go back to look at the season, this is clearly the year that SGA took over as maybe not face of the league just yet, but he's at the doorstep, and this team is on a path that definitely makes you feel like he could take that over.
The country definitely knows SGA now more than they.
The country does, but I think the thing about SGA that might be more interesting to see than even Nikola winning or Giannis winning is how much SGA would then take over the country of Canada, who's already close enough. You know, they get to take pride in Naismith being from there, even though I'll always contend that I still think it's a very American game. Even Naismith would prefer it to be considered an American game, but I digress. They will have had their guy, and then obviously that leads into international basketball down the road. Well, they're already a really good country with a lot of talent. If he's the best player on earth, undisputably by that point, then it'll be an interesting thing for the league. He's a very model kind of oriented guy by nature, so kind of a pretty boy, and I think that obviously helps in a lot of ways. And it's kind of unique. Like, I don't know that. Have we ever had an NBA sex symbol? Like
Tony Parker.
Yeah, but in our country, I will give you Tony Parker. I think in France that's fair.
Fox.
Rick Fox, yeah, I think that's fair. But that's not a
I don't
superstar,
know.
obviously.
But I only know of him because he was on
Um,
The Fresh Prince. Maybe he was on a couple TV shows.
So yeah, I mean, it just doesn't feel like. I mean, Michael's a bald guy, so it's like
No one's
you
ever
know,
thought Michael Jordan was.
LeBron's fine, but he's a goofy fucker. Like, you know what I mean? He's such a goofy looking motherfucker.
They're not Otani or Yu Darvish.
And LeBron LeBron looked 40 years old when he got into the league, so you know that's why he's able to look the same the whole time.
That's interesting. I guess I never considered who is the most attractive men's basketball player.
It's just a funny thing because in soccer they're trying to promote this stuff. Cristiano Ronaldo is probably made a lot of brand money off this. And I remember I was at Lowe's or Home Depot recently. I think it was Lowe's, and they had a special thing with Messi. And Messi's just trying to look as cool as possible. He's just like a fucking dork, you know what I mean? But like, there's a lot of people that's their go, you know. And honestly, I would argue that right there might be more indicative of the true goat right there. Like the guy who sucks at that, but is, you know what I mean? Like that, because this is what he does. Ronaldo, you know, he has that ability to tap into that world, so maybe he's more interested in that. Less, it's stupid, but it's one of those little niche things that if you're really, you know, picking nits. But yeah, ultimately SGA, incredible closeout game. Didn't shoot the ball well. 8 of 27, 2 of 12 from deep. 11 of 12 from the free throw line. I don't think the referees became that much of an issue. Ultimately, there were more problems than there wasn't with Indiana playing basketball, and I thought fouls by the end of it. I think the series started that way, but I don't necessarily feel like there was any other game that really felt that bad. Especially, again, how close it was, where the Pacers were basically in charge of the game 7 in Oklahoma City. Like, it just doesn't feel like bringing the referees into this is at all relevant, especially not anywhere near the 2006 levels that people will bring naturally. 12 to 1 assist to turnover ratio for SGA, which is the biggest part of that. Is SGA realized he couldn't shoot the ball that well, given that Indiana's only hope was to really swallow him out of the offense, and then, so naturally set the table. That means that other people are available to score, and they did. And by the middle of the third, it was a complete blowout, I think.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it was pretty much tied at half.
Yeah, and then that's where the rest of the game goes to completely. So yeah, I mean the Pacers played well.
It makes sense. Yeah, that the Pacers would be still playing well after the injury, but then at halftime you kind of sit, and you have a little bit of time. And it sinks in, I think.
And it's also, don't forget, the kids got to rest too. So like the fact that this team already can pretty much run bigger, faster, and stronger than you could maybe argue many other former teams in even NBA history, just given the fact that they've got this much talent together this young. Like, it's just an easy argument to make. It's kind of like if Shaq and Penny's team would have won the first year they were together, in a way, because it's just, or second year together, or whatever, because
I mean,
it's just bigger, faster, stronger.
Win in 06, and then all of a sudden,
yeah, so
better. I mean, they were still the best team the next year until, well, not the next year, the year after, I guess. No, it was the next year.
Yeah, the next year was the MVP, and then there was a bit of a fall off, and then rebuilt to the champion. But yeah, so Oklahoma City wins the championship. No, I mean, it's just like I said, I think the easiest way to compare it is to the Warriors coming on the scene, where it was like we all felt like it was like the next year. Well, and yeah, it is a big one for their future.
I'm looking at the future, not just how that one looked.
The Warriors' future was incredibly bright for a long time. It was like, even to the Durant time, it was like, how can they just keep pulling shit out of their ass?
Well, yes, that's what I mean. It's not fair. It's not fair to put that on the Thunder, but if you're just saying how this year felt compared to how that single year felt, then that makes more sense to me. Yeah.
Well, I think SGA has an argument to eventually sell and be as big of a brand as anybody else, but it's not just going to be one title. So yeah, they would have to get back to the mountaintop a few times, probably.
You think that can happen in Oklahoma City?
I mean, they planned for it better than anyone else. They stole that team because they were always going to have a good amount of money invested in it. The city invested in it. I mean, yeah, and Presti's such a genius about the way he's handling it. Ultimately, this championship is this championship is more or less just icing on the cake, in my opinion, because I still, just like the Warriors, believe that their title window was the next year. Even Kyrie
A
Irving,
little 20
whatever, gets hurt.
Rangers.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, and maybe for that team, it's a different situation. Who knows? But for this, it's like I, I just don't. This one may just be the first of a couple of championships before eventually some unfortunate situation takes it away. It's funny to think Oklahoma has more basketball championships, or the same number of basketball championships as they do national championships in this year, in this whole millennium.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's Oklahoma City Thunder winning a championship is weird for a lot of things, and I think I could go down too long of a road because I'll just never forget how awful it felt to be a fan of the league. Like just anybody, like even if you had a team, like just like 30 out of 30 fan bases fucking hated that. Like just it was gross from the start to the finish.
I mean, that's why when we were looking
It's
at comps,
tough.
when we were looking at comps for the Luka trade, all we could really come up with were teams.
Yeah.
winning.
Yeah, because honestly, what they did to the Sonics was just fucked, man, and it like didn't have to be fucked. And then the worst part I always thought was that the Thunder just was a very G League ish branding and concept, and they've done well with it. And I think they've ended up pioneering it and changing it in ways that has impressed me over the years. But ultimately, I still think their core uniforms are kind of bland, and I don't really love it. But the Thunder works, like, you know, the lightning storms are a big deal, so it works. Like I'm fine with it. I just don't love it. And of course, it replaced one of the more iconic things.
That's the thing.
So.
What sucks is that you're having talks of, well, we'll be expanding. We'll come back to Seattle. So who cares about the previous history? We'll be back.
Yeah, and then of course now the Thunder have this, like, now this is not their first championship technically, but it is their first
I think
championship.
when Seattle gets a team, they will be getting the history back. But
Well, naturally, I mean, they have a great precedent because Michael Jordan basically mugged the New Orleans franchise whenever he took majority ownership. So, whatever. Moving on from that, on the topic of majority interest, there's no way that we can't do at least an hour and a half on the Lakers today.
on Kelly Olynyk,
No. We don't have to go that long on the Lakers, but this is a big deal. The Buss family selling the majority stake, and today we find out that Jeannie Buss is going to still run the team
We're
for at
told
least
it's in
5
writing.
years. Yeah, this one it felt like it got reported and covered differently as a result of the past.
Especially because they out loud said, or up front said she would be. That was definitely getting followed up on.
Yeah, and so.
Cuban will never have to face any accountability for just lying to everybody about that. But
I mean, there's plenty of. If you ask some true Mavs fans, you could get some long-winded example-filled
Cuban
answers.
definitely is like
with
new money, troublesome owner. Well, you did some good things, but also Jesus Christ.
Yeah, he did help the league a lot.
Like
For that, he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame one day. I think.
He brought the Mavs back from just being the worst.
Well, yeah, and he helped the league. Like, there's no way that Mark Cuban does not deserve to be in the Hall of Fame by the standards of which the owners are usually looked at, because he did 100% force the league's hand, more or less, into making being an NBA player a first-class thing, like being a pro football player in Europe, right? Like, that was the big draw of what he was.
I do remember there was the early stories of like, oh, there's a PlayStation in every locker.
Yeah, I mean, stupid stuff like that, but even just the meals, like providing the meals to players and stuff. Like, I think there was just a lot of ways that Cuban was able to make that situation better for Dallas, and as a result, they were able to draw players in at a time where Dallas was a more or less boring, hot city to go to. It has things, but it doesn't really have things at the time. So now it's easier because it's a much bigger metropolitan area, especially with family. It's easy for the players with families to be interested in the DFW market. But back then it wasn't as much. Anyway, big move. the Dodgers team owns it. You guys did a good job covering a lot of this stuff. I just wanted to kind of point out a couple things. Caesar, you did it. I think you guys did a great job. You questioned why the Warriors were one of the more valuable franchises. Very simple. Very simple. Yeah, all that stuff is good. Steph Curry is globally kind of looked at as the little guy who could now in sports, just like Messi in that same vein. And I think that as a result, different countries like Japan, I know Japan, I don't want to speculate on other countries, but Warriors do stupid well. Like, just significantly better than any other franchise, other than like maybe the Bulls. And like, obviously, you know why that is, right?
Well, I was going to say he's the closest thing we've had to Like Mike since Like Mike in terms of the impact on the just general culture.
Right.
How people look at the game and how kids want to play the game.
Because ultimately, LeBron's brand and image is big here and probably in other places like China or whatever. But ultimately, LeBron did not bring something different to that audience.
You're not modeling your game after LeBron.
Right. Like, there isn't a hope to change that in the way that Curry is. Because also the Curry brand sucks. You know, the Jordan brand was awesome.
Is he still under Under Armour?
Yeah, Under Armour is still... I mean, they've gotten better.
I mean, and you also got to look at... If you look at LeBron, you look at Curry too, and those definitely has to take something into account. Curry is not that tall for an NBA player, right? You look at him; he's not some freak athlete. You look at LeBron, and it's like you can't model yourself after LeBron because he is a one-of-a-kind athlete. Yeah.
No, yeah. LeBron is a super soldier. He's arguably the greatest athlete that's ever been built on Earth, right? Like, there's nothing more... Like, it's hard to argue anything other than that being like a demigod playing sports, right? And so that's part of the charm. So naturally, there is not an everyman to LeBron. It's actually something that I think in some of these books back here, Wilt Chamberlain and him have the most in common. Is they're both looked at as these like almost celestial beings in the world at times, as well as just being basketball players and normal humans.
The word is transcendent.
Yes, I mean, and Wilt's way too. Rob Pelinka. This is really the gun pointing at Rob Pelinka too.
Rob Lowe?
Rob Lowe's evil twin at this point, because I think Rob Lowe would do a better job because I think he has more love for the Lakers. Rob Pelinka...
I wonder who's got more skeletons in the closet, but we can move on.
Well, Rob Lowe definitely would not survive cancel culture, but I think he's mostly... He has Parks and Rec that I think also helps him. The Libs won't let that one go, you know? I think I speak true on that. Like, I don't think that... Like, most Libs end up saying, what's the thing that he said? Literally. Like, I think literally is, like, very common to hear with progressive liberals and stuff. And I think that Rob Lowe is responsible. So it's like the Michael Jackson issue for them. It's like, Thriller's the greatest album of all time. I just saw the scariest documentary of my life. What do I do? It's that kind of argument.
Got some hot opinions on Thriller that we're not getting into here.
Well, I'm just saying, if that's where you're at, right? So Rob Pelinka is definitely on the clock. This gets into a lot of LeBron stuff. Did I separate LeBron? I guess I kind of did, but we can do it here too. We don't know what the fuck's happening with LeBron and the Lakers. He's opted into the contract, so officially he's a Lakers still, but that's a whole drama.
It's tough, right? What are you supposed to do? He's not supposed to take less money. They need to give him less money so they can actually build a team.
To some extent, I agree, but I think that their timeline is built around another year, and luckily they got thrown another fucking bone. And I know it's not the Luka bone, but I still think it's hilarious for them to just bumblefuck onto DeAndre Ayton for free, basically in the prime of his life. Like, I understand the player and his flaws and his frustrations, and I'm not calling it a slam dunk, but can we not laugh?
The upside's crazy.
Can we not laugh at them at the upside of that just falling into their lap?
Technically a big three. If it was.
I mean, yeah, that's so but that's just so Lakers too. But it is boomer bust as fuck. So a couple of things I need to laugh at Rob Pelinka, because there'll be plenty of people that say, "Well, he mastered the Luka trade," which I think history is definitely not going to show that Rob Pelinka mastered anything but keeping this fucking secret quiet.
Yeah, all he did was answer his phone.
And I think that DeAndre Ayton falling into your lap is definitely a product of you now having Luka Doncic more than being Los Angeles Lakers, right? Like, Los Angeles Lakers are obviously a great place to go if you need to rehab a career and image and make some money. But to do so with Luka trying to prove shit, and I feel like is actually for the first time in his career a legitimate front runner for MVP if he's truly coming in shape and all that, right? And I know that if is annoying, but if it isn't I think Luka definitely sets up to be the MVP front runner next year. And DeAndre Ayton would make that even more obvious because, like, Ayton next to Luka, even if he's just the same Ayton, is gonna be pretty fucking good for that basketball team, at least in the regular season. So lots of good things about the Lakers for the Lakers. It's just Rob Pelinka, and I think I don't need to say anything more than talking about the Dorian Finney-Smith situation, which I think actually does look worse on him than the LeBron conundrum, which I do actually.
I'm wondering if was any like the stuff about him. I don't know how it would be confirmed, but confirmed about him telling.
I mean, and more or less
injuries and how bad it was, and
so it's all being reported by ESPN, more or less. Brian Windhorst and Tim McMahon are the only two credible sources we have. Right? We have Wendy saying that this was happening. And then later, just today, I think they released an episode where McMahon goes ahead and says, well, Dorian Finney-Smith has more or less, made a statement that he left very upset with the situation and what had transpired. So that's a really, really bad look on the franchise. I think when it comes down to it, it's not surprising. They did this without Alex Caruso. I mean, them doing it with LeBron, it doesn't even surprise, right? Like, even if it's justified or not. The Lakers are just a childish franchise because they're kind of poor in a lot of ways. Like, they're still a luxurious thing worth a lot of money. But they needed this new money because they don't need Jeannie Buss to go away. She's fine to still govern the team and then hand it over, right? Like, I think that's a great plan. They need resources. Like, they were going cheap on everything compared to the league average. Everything as a part of their from their whole structure down. And it's just not acceptable, in my opinion, to be one of the big brands and be cheaped out all the time. Like, if there's ever
how it's possible they can get to that point.
They've never been able to keep up.
Making more money than any team in the NBA by
revenue share. So,
but they're not getting there. I guess I just don't know how the team. I don't know.
Their valuation is worth a lot, I think, but I don't know that they necessarily take that in.
I don't know what their year to year
because they have to contribute to the NBA. So ultimately, and it doesn't matter. Like, just owning the Lakers is not enough to do this anymore. Like, the arms race for this is much bigger now, and this Dodgers group is very smart. It seems. I mean, I guess there's also a world where maybe they bankrupt all the franchises in LA at the same time simultaneously with how they're doing the baseball contracts. But, so far, I don't think that's too big of an issue. So, it's mostly good for the Lakers, but the Lakers still have a lot of weird questions to answer. And honestly, all that really matters for the Lakers is Luka Doncic a good basketball player or not? Or is he a fit one? That's pretty much covering all the angles of the Lakers. The LeBron shit is so confusing. There's no reason for us to continue to try to figure that out. I think they hinted at like 3 years max, and then there's some video of him maybe saying that Savannah's making him retire in a year or so, whatever. Yes, technically the Lakers could buy out his contract in a similar way to what we'll talk about in a second, and maybe he could go to just join the Mavs or some hilarious shit like that on the veteran minimum if he really wants to.
Another team with some pretty good cap space left.
I would say that team is looking very unlikely, since I think the Spurs have made a very interesting string of decisions this offseason, but they tell me a lot more about their franchise than I think I thought they would this offseason, which I actually respect. We'll get to that because the Texas Triangle is complete, brothers. Because obviously Wemby's still there. He's become a monk. He's doing soccer tricks. He's off on his side quest, but he's going to come back bigger, faster, stronger. Potentially the runner-up or the direct rival to Luka Doncic for an MVP. And I think the Spurs around him look interesting. But Kevin Durant going to the Houston Rockets and more or less not hemorrhaging what that team is, pretty good. Pretty good, pretty big deal in my opinion. I understand why people would be hesitant, but when you look at the fact that they were able to retain a lot of their young guys and only really got rid of the one they were the most unsure of, I think that's really good. I think they were able to retain enough veterans, steal a guy like Dorian Finney-Smith because Rob Pelinka's out there fucking being a gossip. You know, these are all really good moves. And like I'm really impressed with the Rockets doing this and then doing it in a way that I thought made sense for a KD-built team. And then they still have a lot of maneuverable ways to make this Rockets team immediately a contender for a championship. So
all I'm seeing is that the West is just going to be a bloodbath for the foreseeable future.
Always was, yeah, always was. I think that it's going to be tough to not stave off the arguments for that top 16 playoff thing, but we'll see. Yeah, I'm very excited about the Texas Triangle returning. Kevin Durant's back in number 7, which I think is an interesting decision for him in his career. But yeah, I'm excited to see what he can do with it, and you know, I do think the Mavericks are still a decent team. Anthony Davis randomly had a cornea issue he had to deal with. Kyrie Irving doesn't know if he'll be back or not. I'm not super worried about those things at this point, but, you know, Mavericks end up getting a couple of interesting players, filling out the roster that's pretty much already in place, and we'll see. And Nico Harrison gets to see his project through more or less. Obviously, with Cooper Flag.
Really. Yeah, that wasn't part of the plan.
So, yeah, I guess, well, my next thing was draft day anyway. So, Cooper Flag is the highlight of the year for the Mavericks, regardless of whether the veterans work out or not, which is why I also don't mind, like, D'Angelo Russell being a part of this team is like, hey, there might be a world where you just kind of need the empty calorie D'Angelo Russell minutes because things are going a little less than ideal for multiple reasons. Like, I think the Mavericks can still pretty much hit the ejection button on this roster while maintaining your franchise cornerstone player for the future, you would think. I don't know how serious to take them as a title contender, and I don't really think it's worth even arguing until we have an idea of what this thing looks like on paper again or on court again.
Yeah, I mean, you likely won't. Even by the end of next year, you'll be like, well, Kyrie was just coming back. Let's give it again to the next year now that he's healthy, kind of thing.
Maybe, yeah. I think it could be more volatile there. But, yeah, I think at least by January, we're looking at this team and understanding a decent amount about it. With then Kyrie Irving on the horizon of returning. But there's a lot that can happen in that. So, yeah, I mean, do you guys have any other questions about Cooper Flag, the latest entry into the pantheon of white basketball players of Dallas history?
Not yet, man. Not yet. I mean, the last time we talked and we brought up Cooper Flag, I feel like you answered a good deal of my questions.
Yeah.
So now it's just seeing him on the court and going from there, you know?
Could be playing point guard.
Will he be playing
Jason
point guard?
Kidd said, well,
is he a point guard?
First, Cooper Flag said that basketball is positionless now, and then Jason Kidd said he was happy he said that because he plans on playing in 1 through 5, so...
Oh, yeah, I definitely want to see Cooper Flag play the five.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, these things are both true.
1 through 4, but...
These things are both true. Basketball is more positionless, especially for a guy like Cooper Flag, who truly does seem to, again, when we talk about LeBron...
Just depends on who you have on the court.
Well, but again, though, it's...
You know, when you have Wemby, like, he's not running he's never going to be the one, you know?
Yeah, but Victor Wembanyama, I think.
Jokic is never really going to be the point guard for the Nuggets.
Well, he is though, but I mean, he's the primary ball handler. Is probably the way you would say it.
Yeah.
It's don't detonate me, man.
But yeah,
This is the modern technology. We gotta use the modern terms now.
It depends on who you have on the court, whether you have a more traditional structure or not.
Yeah. No, it's just the traditional structure has been broken down for basketball. It's why the triangle's dead. It's why a lot of things about basketball are way too complicated for ESPN to figure out and give to you quickly, and probably why they don't invest into it as much as anything. We'll see how Amazon and NBC handle it. At this point, jazz is the popular word with basketball. And it's just a flow of taking the best players you have talent-wise that you can get, and how do you orchestrate it in a way that flows. Whether it makes fundamental sense or not is kind of irrelevant because you're just using everything you have in the bag.
I wouldn't hate watching a version of basketball where they cycle players like hockey.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll be that much, but I mean, look at what Rick Carlisle did with T.J. McConnell, right?
Triple the roster size, it wouldn't really work, but.
But I mean, no, I do think there's a real fair criticism of what you just said because NBA benches are hilariously shallow for the regular season. Like, yes, a lot of guys get minutes, but like not real substantial minutes, developmental minutes.
Was it the Thunder who started the year like playing like everybody a bunch? Like the whole
the Thunder cycled through a lot of guys before they ended up settling.
A specific effort to do that for the first part of the season. It might have been the Warriors. It might have been Steve Kerr. I don't remember.
Oh no, Steve Kerr definitely started the season out being a little more wonky. No, they played everybody though, just in various ways. Other than like Ousmane Deng, which is like one of their developmental potential lottery stars.
70 games or whatever, you have opportunities to throw some guys in. So,
and honestly, I think it's just developing decent draft picks that are young, and that's kind of been their formula. Is like they actually know what they're doing in scouting really well at this point because they don't really miss. They understand what guys contribute to their thing and what positions they should load up on. And like, look, even guys like the Ousmane Deng. That was a really young player that they drafted, and it was more or less a flyer on like a Giannis type flyer. And it's like, okay, he's clearly not on the Giannis path, or else he would have already been here. But who knows? He could still be a player that's useful, or maybe even great down the road. And so this just the way they collect talent has just been absurd, bro.
That's why they're the champs.
It's true. Yeah. Are you playing us out?
I guess so, yeah. Trying to keep us somewhat on time.
All right. Yes. I think we're good on that. Oh, Malik Beasley did that shit.
He definitely
did.
did
That over because there's some baseball stuff to get with that too. So
Malik Beasley definitely did that shit. And Ace Bailey thought he was Kobe, but he wasn't.